Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabaders of Delmer, and together with my co-host Mark Ronich of Statewide News Service and jbiztechvalley.com.
Well, you know, Rabbi, we always like to have mayors on the program. We've had the mayor of Albany, mayor of Schenectady, mayor of Saratoga. Now we have the mayor of Troy, Lou Rosemilia. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great
So
to
we
be
got
here.
the whole capital
Mark and Rabbi.
district.
Well, we're getting there. We got to do Amsterdam and then Hudson, and then we'll be okay. Anyway, I wanted to ask you about who you are. Maybe you can introduce yourself to the audience. I know that you were a professor at Hudson Valley Community College, and fondly thought of there. But you were born in Troy?
Yes, I was born in Troy. My wife and I moved to Pittstown for a short span of time, then moved back into Troy over 30 years ago. And all our roots are in Troy. My parents, her parents are all from Troy. So it's been a great run for us in the city.
How old are you?
I'm now 65.
65.
Yes.
And how, over 65 years, how have you seen the city change?
Well, I remember when I was a youngster being able to hitchhike when I was doing my papers. I had a paper route in Troy, and papers were 42 cents. And we'd have every Saturday we'd have to go down and pay the money to the circulation desk. And I hitchhiked down. Right? And we'd stay around, we'd go bowling, we'd go to Charlie's Hot Dogs, have a great time, a group of us.
And
then
it was
you
a safe
hitchhike back
city.
up.
It was a lot different.
It was a lot different, you know. And then downtown, you had all the 5 and 10s. We had Woolworths, and we had the Greens, and you know, it was a bustling, very bustling
How
city.
can you bring it back to those old days if you even want to? Maybe you don't. But
Well, I don't think we'll ever get back to the big stores. But what we are doing is a lot of new businesses have arrived in Troy. We've had over 60 businesses open up in the past couple of years.
Wow.
Many of those are small businesses, you know, a lot of sweat equity type businesses. But now we're also attracting many large companies, architectural firms from Clifton Park, Albany. We also have computer companies coming in.
But you're also building up the lakefront also, as I've seen. You know, it looks nice. That was always a big problem was, you know, many people have told me that, you know, the Hudson River is so beautiful.
Yes.
And you have a cement factory, and it really could be such a beautiful area. I mean, New York City has made their lakefronts, again, it was a little down in Brooklyn, and now they're making it beautiful, and you're trying to do that also, aren't you?
Yes, and that started with the Riverfront Park.
Good.
Okay? The Riverfront Park was the initial step. They changed the whole design of the park so that the park could be, if you're walking down the street, River Street, you could look over and actually see the river now. Before they had mounds of grass, and it wasn't visible. So part of the design was, okay, let's make this park something that people want to use and see.
And then you had a restaurant on the river, which was the envy of everyone, and it was served fish. They were, and before Dinosaur Barbecue,
right.
They had a couple of restaurants that, you know, where you could go closer to the water and, you know, get that sense that you were really right there, and you could see the bridge right over there. It was very different than anything else in the Capital District.
And you know, we have our city line. It's like 7 miles of waterfront, and we are very fortunate to have 7 miles. Portions of that is brownfields, which we're working with National Grid now to remediate. And once that remediation is done, we'll see much more activity on the Hudson. So we really want to make it a working waterfront, and at the same time, we want to make sure that we put in our bike trails. We want to make sure that people have access to the river. We talked about different spots like on Madison Avenue where there's a fishing pier. So we're really trying to make it not only business, but even somewhat residential. If you notice what's happening in Troy now,
Right.
The Dolce building, for example, and another apartment house they're sitting down there, the Hudson. These are beautiful places, and where they see, when they look east, is the river. So it's a beautiful setting.
What's going on with the old Troy City Hall, which I really like the structure of the old Troy City Hall, but now you're in the Headley building on River Street. But
Right.
what's going on with that other building?
The one Monument Square? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Mark.
Monument Square, yeah.
Okay, one Monument Square. At this point, we are almost in a complete point of agreement with Joe Kershoff and Company. That's come a long way. We're
But you're
working
basically
on an
going to
LDA.
take it down? You're going to demolish it?
Oh,
or
I'm sorry, Mark.
The City Hall, Troy City Hall.
That had been demolished originally many years ago, Troy City Hall, right? And then Troy City government had to be relocated over
Right.
6th Avenue,
Okay.
1776 6th Avenue. There was a 3-year lease on that, and then when I came in, that 3rd year, the lease had expired. So the first 10 months of my first term, which was
Okay.
We were in 1776 6th Avenue,
Okay.
right, and we were paying a large rent. So we did some shopping, and that's how we ended up in Headley.
Okay, so it's an open space now where the
Yes.
Troy City Hall was?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
So what's going to be going in there?
Okay.
Because that's prime waterfront
Oh,
property.
it definitely is, and that's what we're referring to before with the
Okay.
Kirchhoff Company and developers. And we're like in our final stages now, just before we signed our LDA, Land Distribution Agreement, so that we can go forward now with developing that. And what that's going to be, it's going to be mixed-use property. We're going to be able to have apartments will be there. We'll have some rental activity downstairs, retail businesses. It looks like it'll probably be the permanent home for our farmers market.
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
know if you folks have ever been over on a Saturday morning.
No,
You know, we
because
get- we
it's
have-
the Sabbath.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
We-
If
you
you
know,
have it
we
on
have
Sunday, we'll be there.
Okay, we have about 8,000 people coming into downtown
Really?
Troy
Really?
to participate in this farmers market. And it's out on, we close the streets off and it's down on River Street, and it will actually become part of their permanent home.
You know,
So we're
just
very
talking
close to
about-
signing the
yeah.
agreement, hopefully maybe
To
by
make
the
it
end of the week
nice,
even.
yeah.
Okay.
You know, we're talking about the Jewish community, we're on the Jewish View, and I actually have connections to Troy because a number of years ago I was the officiating rabbi for the high holidays, and that's to fill on River Street.
Where you were, when I saw you, where you were for that event.
Yes.
with
He knows
Label
Pastor
Morrison,
Philip.
yeah.
Yes.
Label Morrison is the
Yes.
president. And, you know, they go through the history and they're very proud of the history of that synagogue. I think it's it's historical because it's so beautiful. Unfortunately, it's underused. So you see like, whatever, 100 years ago, number of years ago was, again, a booming temple. I mean, the seats hold 400 or 500 people, and they said it was packed. And now, you know, it's a very small population, so the Jewish community has seen its heyday, but maybe when it's revitalized the economy, the Jewish people maybe populate it a little bit more.
Yeah, what's
Yeah, we-
what's your recollection after touring the building after you were there, earlier this year? What was your recollection of what you saw of the building? I mean, obviously we know the roof is leaking a little bit. What else?
It's part of historical downtown Troy.
Yeah.
If you go back and look at Troy, it's known for its history, it's known for its architecture, and it just fits right in. So I was very impressed with what I saw in terms of the old sculptures, the whole idea of how it was laid out. Very impressive building. Obviously, it needs it's in disrepair, a little bit of disrepair, needs a little bit of help, but it kind of brings me back to, okay, it's nice to have this because a lot of things have been torn down. And when the items are getting torn down, the buildings are being torn down, we're just losing so much history.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's some way that we can keep our old structures, maintain them, hopefully they'll come around. We're starting to experience a little bit of that now with some of the businesses that were on River Street, some of the old manufacturing businesses. And the buildings are still there, but now all of a sudden there's just a new interest in developing them and using them, even in the downtown Troy area.
Yeah, that's really, I mean, because if you see the whole New England, like I said, New York City, people who are in Brooklyn, a dump, and now it's $1 million, you can't get anything less than $1 million. And I was in Massachusetts and, Pittsfield, Lexington, they take these, like you say, these old factory buildings that were gutted and empty, and now they're beautiful condos and museums. So that's what I say, Troy really, if you look at the basic facts, people say, oh, Troy, a number of years ago, it's run down. So you got a waterfront, like you say, you have historical features there. There's really no reason that someone with a little imagination could just make it into a beautiful city. So, you're seeing that all over New England, so I think it would be, you're starting already in Troy, but it really could be a booming city and a beautiful city for the younger people. That's the in thing, to be in a city. And after World War II, everybody's, let's get out of the city, go to the suburbs.
Yeah, right.
And now it's more like everybody's getting back into the city.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned it, Rabbi, because that's what's happening. We see two major segments coming back into the city. One segment is the people like myself that don't want to get on the empty nesters and we don't want to cut our lawn anymore. And they want to be able to park their car and have a walking downtown. And the other group is the young professionals. They love the same thing. They can park their car, some of them bicycle to work, bicycle back, don't have to move the car, but yet everything they need is in the downtown area. So we're seeing this influx of people back into the urban areas.
So let me ask you, you talked about economic development and businesses, and there's a Jewish-owned business in Troy that is getting a lot of bad press. It's Cocapelli's bar. The Glick family owns it. I mean, there was an incident in January. There was an incident maybe before, a little before that or a little after. But you go in the bar now, and they have more workers, more employees than they do patrons. And
After the incident, you're saying?
yeah, and is there anything that can be done that the city can do to try to help them re-image themselves as a safe, because now they have no patrons, so it's not like you got a bar that's rowdy or anything. Is there anything you can do to try to be positive towards Cocapelli's and encourage people, like, we want to save this, we don't want another vacant building on 4th Street?
Well, I think more of that is Mr. Glick's approach. Is does he want to help? Because I know that when they had the incident in late January, it created a lot of rift, and they did say that they lost a lot of business, and obviously the last thing we want to do is have closed businesses down, right, and have another empty building.
Right, exactly.
Right. I'd like to, if they're interested, I'd hope that they would reach out to us and just, ask about it. I know that there's some investigation as to the activity of that. It was is still ongoing. But the institution is open. The city of Troy did not close it down. Right?
No, but I have
So
to
we
tell
left
you
it
that,
open. Yes.
Joseph Glick is the son, and his father gave him $300,000+ to buy the building and to open up of his retirement money. It was cash. And now this may be lost, just on a personal level.
Well, what's the city supposed to do, though, Mark?
I don't know, but this is why they have an economic development arm. This is why, there wasn't this event that happened in January was not the owner's fault. He didn't, he's got signs everywhere, he's got security guards everywhere, and there were just a few people who got out of hand. The police were called. The police are called. There are about 10 other bars in the area. Police are called all the time to the other bars, and they don't get closed down. It's just a fact of life that people drink, and then they get rowdy, and then they have problems. But it's not the bar owner saying, hey, I want you to get rowdy. I want you to be, I want you to be disruptive. So I'm just wondering, what can you do to really help them?
Well, first of all, like I said, as you said, the city did not close it down.
Right.
Which could have been even more devastating had, based on the points that the people earn.
Nuisance points.
Nuisance abatement points that could cause them to have been shut down. Right. But we've left it open. I know that, as you say, the business is down.
Yeah.
I remember being there for one of the openings, and it was, it was a beautiful place. You went to the first floor, second floor, third floor, and it was apparent to how much money they actually put into that. So we're trying to develop that whole 4th Street. As part of,
more lighting maybe on 4th Street. More lighting.
We do have lighting. We have the cameras now over there as well to help.
What about putting
we've got two businesses opening kitty corner from them.
What about Christmas lights or holiday lights? When you put them up on all the other streets, I understand 4th Street doesn't have the spirit of the holiday spirit.
The Business Improvement District, our bid group,
Yeah.
they're working on that.
Okay.
And they're trying to get more. Like I said, we talked about having a block party just on 4th,
Okay.
so we can bring people over there.
Between state and Congress.
Straight, actually up to Broadway, even
Oh.
up to Broadway even. But
So-
between state and Congress is very
Right.
important.
So, yeah, because there are other places that are empty buildings there. Now, you had the UAlbany incident where there was another bar down the road where the students maxed out or they couldn't be
In
there
Troy or no?
in Troy.
Troy.
And then they came down the block to Cocapelli. 400 kids came down the block to
Yeah.
Cocapelli's. That's not a place that can hold 400 people. But the owner didn't invite these 400 people to come
Definitely.
down there.
They did-
But he gets blamed for it.
No, they did an excellent job.
Okay.
Excellent job, Mr. Glick. They realized that they could not accommodate. In fact, I think they had parties that night. So
Yeah.
really, realistically, they couldn't allow anybody else in the building.
Right.
So they did a great job.
But it's
the
the-
youngsters were well behaved. What happened? There was a group of them came from SUNY Albany,
Yeah.
and they called the buses up. The buses came back, and the students left. There was no incident at all.
No, the
No
students
inside nor outside. It was
on the street.
very well.
Oh,
very
no,
well.
there
Oh, no.
wasn't a big
Oh, no,
hoopla on the
just-
street
No,
with the
no,
kids?
they had walked down the street. There was no arrest. There was nothing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how closely are you working with the police chief these days? Because there was some sort
Very,
of...
Chief and I work very closely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because
We have so much going on in the city of Troy.
Yeah.
That's our focus.
you swallowed the from the other problems that were earlier this year or last year or whatever. There was a commissioner you wanted.
Yeah,
to
the
be put in?
commissioner served for a short period of time, and
Right.
then he resigned
Right.
in February this year.
Okay.
And then the chief took over, and we sat down, we had a very candid conversation with one another back in February, and as you know, things have continued to go
Now,
well.
I understand
but
that the-
you know, right now, we're working very much in hand, and you'll see us press conferences.
Well, I see that. I
Right,
saw
and
you
then
at the
you know,
city
that's just-
council meeting.
Right,
you
and
know,
what we're trying to do
together.
is give that unified.
So, but the police chief was hired under the previous administration, which is a Republican administration.
Right.
And, you know, in Schenectady, they have a commissioner and police chief also. They have a commissioner for public work, what was it called? They have a police chief that deals with fire, police, and EMS, and emergency first responders. And so it doesn't focus, the commissioner position doesn't really focus only on the police.
Right.
And it sort of spreads out that oversight, you know. It's sort
Commissioner
of
of
like
Public Safety is what we
Safety,
would call
thank
it,
you, yes.
yes.
And I wanted, so, I mean, could you have been, do you think it would have been better if you had a commissioner of public safety that didn't seem so threatening to the police chief, that you got someone in to oversee him or something? Was there a better way of dealing with the dynamics?
At that time, Mr. Magneto, Anthony Magneto, was the individual that I spoke with, and we talked about the public safety piece of it, as opposed to Commissioner of Police. And after lengthy discussions, we said it would be probably better off if we just go with not the public safety piece, but the Commissioner of Police.
Well, in hindsight, do you think it's better that you might have gone with the public safety piece?
No,
I mean,
I'm
seeing
very-
how
no.
well Schenectady's working out
Yeah.
with this.
Yeah, I'm very comfortable with that. And now, I don't set aside the possibility that someday we'll hire
Okay.
a Commissioner of Public Safety. Because when we advertise, that's how we advertised it.
Because it seems like that's a better idea, you know, based on Schenectady and maybe some other cities that I don't know about, but it seems like it sort of works better even psychologically for people who have big egos and, you know, macho egos and a lot of testosterone flowing. So you kind of wonder if there's,
In general, though, how is the crime rate? I mean, people, again, I've been around for a few years,
well,
and they,
you're stepping into a big,
I mean, that is part of quality of life in a
Yes, it
city.
is.
Well, definitely
People,
is.
when they
Well-
want to move to a city, I mean, obviously, crime is one of your bigger issues.
yeah, you have sections of the city, what's, 8 sections, 6 sections of the city, like Lansingburg, North Central, South Central, Central, downtown.
The pavement parks, go away,
Little-
east side,
yeah,
there's just so many segments of it. But
Right.
it's broken down into 4 zones for
Okay.
police work.
So, you know, obviously Lansingburg and North Central are your biggest problems these days, I guess.
I wouldn't say they're the problem, there's activity up there.
Yes.
Okay, there's some, that's where some of the activity has occurred, and that's what we've done with the chief, is we've enhanced the number of patrols up there. Right? We also took care of some of the details. some
Mm-hmm. What
of
about
which is-
learning from what the city of Albany did with the community policing? Do you like that idea?
Oh, yes, we do that.
You do
We do that,
community
yeah, we
policing?
do have community policing.
You have
We just need
guys
to
on
expand it
bicycles?
more. Yes.
You have guys on bicycles?
Yes, we
and-
do.
And do you have neighborhood associations where the police go to these neighborhood association meetings?
That's part of their job. Part of the job of the public safety people is that they work flex hours. And so that avails them to go to all the neighborhood meetings. So whenever there's a neighborhood meeting, one of the officers will be there. And they talk to them about any issues that's going on in the neighborhood. They could, ask questions.
Yeah.
They bring them statistics,
What's your city budget? What's your budget in the city?
about 70 million.
70 million. And what's your salary?
My salary is 95,000.
And it's a full-time position? Well, because the mayor of
Yeah, oh, definitely,
Saratoga
yes.
says that it's considered a part-time position in Saratoga. She's making 14,000 a year. So that's why I'm asking, not to be nosy, but I
No,
just,
that's right.
It is a full-time, it's more than a full-time position, for
Yeah,
sure.
Coming out of education where I spent 16 hours in the classroom and
Right.
5 hours in office hours, that's 21 hours. I could put 21 hours in at least in 2 days, easy.
You know, and you're 65 years old.
Yes.
I mean, is this really what you thought the job would be when you first ran for office? That you,
That's an interesting question that you have. That it's what I thought it would be. I came in with no preconceived notion as what this job was going to be, other than I want to serve the public. Right? I spent 40 years in academia, serving public. Serving
What was
the
your
people.
subject? What was-
Accounting.
Yeah.
Really? All right.
He's a numbers guy, a numbers
All
geek,
right,
as
well,
I call
that's
him.
important. To be a mayor, you got to know the budget.
That's
I have
right.
know the budget and I'll try to balance that baby. But so I came from a situation where I was a public servant, right? And I had an opportunity to help the city of Troy. And my wife and I, we talked about it, we prayed over it, and we said if we can make Troy a better place than it is now, then I'd like the opportunity to do so.
Well, I have to tell you that I went on ratemyprofessor.com, and I can't find a negative comment about you, and I printed out some of them in case you wanted them for your files. But you know, you actually used your AAA card to have a student have his car serviced or towed. He needed his car towed, and you offered your AAA card to him. He wrote about that on here, and then he said you were a great teacher, and I'm like, well, because he offered you the card, or there was something else? I mean, I wasn't quite making the connection, but I saw everyone else, you know, a great teacher at Hudson Valley, very willing to help you with anything, explains the notes perfectly, the way he teaches is very understandable. You didn't pay these people to write them out. However, there's a lot to memorize. The final was easy as pie. He let you know exactly what you need to know on every test, about 5 throughout the class. He is fun and easy to joke and talk with, a great guy. So, you know, that's similar to what all these comments were saying about you. So, you know, I thought I've
loved working at Hudson Valley.
You know.
President Drew Matnack refers to me as Professor Mayor Rosemilia.
Right.
Yeah, it was such a
Well,
part
you know,
of my life.
besides a
And it still
numbers
is.
person, like for a budget, you have to have a personality too. I mean, let's face it, you go into political arena, you can't just be an egghead and, you know, the smartest one, you know, Albert Einstein probably wouldn't be the president, but, you know, so you need someone intelligent who can, like you say, work the numbers in the budget, and you have to have a good personality and likable person. Let's face it, it's part of the job too.
It definitely is.
So, again, economic development, crime, problems in the city. I mean, you're struggling. Do you hope that, you know, you want to do this for several more terms? I mean, is this something that I know that, what do you get, a 4-year?
It's a 4-year term.
Contract, people give you a 4-year
Right.
contract.
Right. And I'm on my 3rd year
Okay.
of the 4-year term.
So you're going
So in the early part of next year, I'll make a final decision as to
haven't-
whether or not, no.
You're still on the fence?
In my mind, I think I'm pretty close to deciding exactly where I want to be. But you know, early part of next year, I'll make that decision.
What's the average of all the mayors of the city of Troy? Have you ever looked to see what the average lifespan was for a
They
mayor?
usually run 2 terms. We have term limits in Troy.
Oh, okay.
So you can only run 2 terms.
Well, then you should do it
So it's
just
8
for one
years.
more time. You should just,
There's a lot of reasons too. You know, we have so much going on in economic development. I mentioned the new Monument Square project. You know, you like to see things. Sometimes you like things started, and you like to see them be completed.
Right.
And it gives me the opportunity to do that.
So you
But
should.
I'm also 65 years old.
That's right.
and,
So you'll be
you know,
69.
I'll be 71 years old.
Well, no, you'll be 60.
another year
Because
to go.
another year and then
Yeah.
71. Okay, so
Yeah. So there's a lot of things to consider. You know,
flunk,
my
he
wife
wasn't
and I-
good in accounting.
Take him into your course, professor, over here. Teach him something over here.
My wife and I love to travel, and like I say, and you know, we had a death in the family. She lost her dad this year, and her mother is not well. She's little. So as I say, you know, you just
A lot of
when you-
factors
you,
and
you look into it.
decisions,
It's not a snap decision. You look at all the pros and
Well,
cons.
it's
and-
fulfilling, but
Well,
I mean,
then-
because you're doing such a good job, that's what I think Mark is hinting at. You know, like if things are going well, why you change
Because
in
you
the
want to
middle?
end on a high note, not have them drag you out on a stretcher. But I just, I don't know. I was just wondering, you know, with all of what I saw at the council meeting. I mean, it was the first council meeting I went to in Troy, and all of a sudden there was the PBA president getting up and slamming this councilwoman for, you know, potentially inciting a melee, and then he was wrong, and the video showed he was wrong, and then, you know, there was all this apologizing going on all around afterwards, but she got up and walked out in the middle of the PBA president's speech, and then you had another guy who got up there after the PBA president, and he was escorted out by the police, which never made the news, and, you know, there was a lot of activity going on there.
It was a busy evening.
So, you know, I mean, I just thought that you'd be standing in the back of the room just shaking your head saying, this isn't what I signed up for.
You know, you would always want everything to go perfect,
Yeah.
but life's not that way.
Life's not that way, you know.
And you got to be adaptable, flexible,
Okay.
and adjust to the situation.
So tell me, what can you do with Cocopelli's? What can you do as a mayor to keep that, besides just not closing it down and saying, okay, we're supporting it because they're closing down. What can you do to sort of inspire people to you don't have to be the PR arm for the bar, but what can you do so people
why
don't
people
think that it's a
stop?
bad,
What was the
because they
reason?
think that it's a
Just
bad
PR?
place to
No,
go.
it's
They
just
think it's a bad
PR.
place to go, and there's it's not a bad place because no one's going. It's an empty building. And I don't know what to do. What can you do as mayor?
Our economic development coordinator is Monica Kozieski.
Yeah.
Right. So I work very closely with her, and also the Business Improvement District. Right. Those are the people that actually do the promotions around the city.
Okay.
They're the ones that do and I don't know for sure, but I'm going to guess Cocopelli is probably a member of the bid.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And as a result, the Business Improvement District, they do this stuff. They take on initiatives. As I mentioned before, they were talking about doing a block party.
Yeah.
From Congress Street up to the state.
Right.
And if now you've noticed that Proctor's is now open
Right.
again.
Oh, I was
there's
at-
a business space.
Yeah, I was
so
at
the
that news
chamber,
conference, yes.
right? So that's very exciting. So that's going to bring people over to the Fourth, and that's what I think they need. It's
So
just,
would it be a positive thing if just symbolically you went into Cocopelli's and you had the TV cameras with you and you made a thing saying, come on back or something, or look, the mayor you're the cheerleader, the cheerleader in
Yeah.
chief.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, is there anything symbolically that you can do to really show people that, this isn't such a bad place?
well, let me give some thought, and then see what we can come up with some ideas.
Yeah.
And something that might work.
Because I would hate to see another Jewish business owner just, close up shop, and that's why
Right.
that's why I'm asking about that. I know that there's other bars like the Ruck, and there's the Fin bars and Bootleggers, and
Yeah, but Mark, maybe you should make a kosher restaurant out of it.
Well-
Maybe that'll get them some extra business.
is
I don't know how
Bootleggers
much-
the one that is RPI students like to funnel towards, or the Ruck, one of the two?
Probably the Ruck.
The Ruck.
Both places do very well.
Yeah.
But it's always after my bedtime.
Well, then you got Brown. Now you got the brew pubs. You got Brown's, you got the Tap Room, you got O'Brien's, you
These are
got
mainly
Dublin's.
just, let's say these are college kids.
No,
And
well,
it's
well,
all-
these are
lot of
bars
all these
that
places.
these are the brew pubs are like the latest thing because they brew their own beer right on site,
Well,
and it's all kosher. The beer is kosher.
Yeah, sure.
It's
All right.
so it's a.
hey, we ought to go, Mark, over here and boost up the business.
No
a little
doubt,
bit.
no doubt. But the bar itself is not kosher, but the brew pubs are.
Yeah, beer is a
And-
beer. All right, good.
And I just thought maybe, I know that's like there's a different atmosphere when you go to the brew pubs. There's a different clientele. Maybe encouraging bars not to be so dark and have black painted walls, and maybe making it more open. Maybe that inspires people, different type of crowd to come in. I don't expect you to be an interior decorator, but
That's a little out of my scope of my authority.
I'm just saying,
to
but
do
there
stuff
are
like
people
that, yeah.
who, certain places that are appearing a certain way get a certain crowd. So, I know that the brew pubs also serve food.
Yes.
So, and Cocopelli's doesn't. I think that's a problem. I think the popcorn's not a food.
No, definitely.
So, but all right, well, listen, thank you for giving it some thought and being that cheerleader in charge, and, hoping that businesses continue to thrive and prosper in Troy. I mean, we want to see the synagogues prosper. We have 3 synagogues in Troy. You have Bethel on Hoosick Street and Berith Shalom, where I taught Sunday school for 1 year. And then you have the Beth Tefillah on River Street.
Yeah, sure.
So
All right, so thank you, Mayor, for being on the
are
Jewish
there,
View.
are there topics that you
Yeah.
wanted to cover that we didn't know enough to ask?
No, I thought maybe we were going to talk a little bit about the history, but that's okay.
Well, let's talk
No,
about
no,
the
I mean,
history.
no,
We
We
got
only have
time.
a few minutes.
Okay, we got a few minutes.
Oh,
Go ahead.
Troy,
we're done? We got to wrap it up? Oh,
You
my-
know,
Okay.
you know what, Mark,
So,
then we're going to have to ask the mayor
We'll ask him to
back.
come, we'll have you as a repeat guest.
Yeah,
Okay?
because there is
I
a
didn't-
long history of Troy, and I know in the
Yeah.
Jewish community also tremendous that I even know of, and I would like to hear more about it. But thank you very much. You're doing a tremendous job in Troy, and keep doing it, and especially with good health.
Best of
Thank you.
success.
Thank you,
Yes,
Mayor.
absolutely,
Thank you.
Mayor.
Thank you.